Samurai came into the off-road scene in 2007 on a show called Extreme 4x4. The host, Ian and Jesse, had built out this really cool one-of-a-kind diesel Samurai that I fell in love with. And then many years later, I had the opportunity to buy and save out in Tennessee, save out of the back of a guy's shop. I wasn't 100% certain which direction I was going to go with this thing until I got it home and we really got to dig into it. But I decided I wanted to go crazy. Let's do some Unimog axles, some Mercedes Unimog axles with factory portals. It came with a BRM Volkswagen diesel from Ian's son's commuter car that was rear-ended, and I decided to throw a stronger transmission at it, a Jeep transmission. After so many years of so many different ideas being tossed at this thing, it just had a lot of things that needed to be chopped out and updated, and some things that needed to be tweaked in order to meet what the new demand of this little Samurai buggy is going to be. We got this thing started, drove it around the block, and then it basically just ended up on the bed of my truck with no shakedown run, and we took it down to King of the Hammers for its very first trail, and that's what you're about to see. With how light the body and basic drivetrain components are compared to how heavy these Unimog axles are, this thing defies physics. I mean, you can get it really close to on its side and you don't feel any body roll whatsoever. Everything is so stable and controlled. All the suspension geometry is exactly where I planned it to be, so our ride height is exactly where it needed to be in order for all this to work together in this freaky, cohesive, high clearance rock crawler. And by the way, when you're watching this, make sure you're taking a look at how we're just gliding over these rocks. The diffs aren't touching, the belly isn't touching. I know that originally I got a lot of crap for trying to make this tall, but when you want a purpose-built rock crawler, being able to stay away from the rocks is such a giant asset. And right now we're only on a 39. Once we get to a 42, this is going to look a little bit more balanced. It's going to fill these wheel wells up a little bit more, and we're going to have even more clearance off the rocks.
Oh, I felt engaged. Nope. It's not?
Yeah, opened it.
We're going to find a few issues, a couple big ones actually, on this trip, but the first one that I noticed was the lockers. They weren't staying locked for very long, so I don't know if it's like an adjustment I need to do for like the collar in these lockers. It's like a lever on the outside of the housing that goes forward and backward, and I used to come in the shutdown solenoid, which is totally engaging them, but it's not holding them very well. So that's something I'm going to have to play with.
Yeah, the rear's unlocked.
There it is.
Yeah, there you go, front's unlocked. Can't win.
So annoying. Alright.
That grinding you just heard, that's not me not knowing how to work a clutch. That is the second major problem that we have to figure out with this thing. The transmission is kind of roached. I did that in the DDI swap TJ I had. That's what this transmission came out of. and I forgot. It just sat on the side of my shop for 2 years, and I forgot that second and reverse are really rough in this transmission. But we can still have fun in it, and in fact, the guy who's helping me film, Jared, I really appreciated his help, so I was like, dude, why don't you drive it for a little bit? And then he got to just see how point and shoot this weird little buggy is.
Finally, this thing works, it drives. I tried to film our first trip last night, but we couldn't get anything to focus. It was tough. So I wrangled up everybody. Looks like we're about ready to go. We're gonna go to a place called Blueberry because it's not part of the track here at King of the Hammers today. So, so far it's been good. Just had to tighten up a couple fittings. Last night was fun, but I'm excited to go and like see this all work in the day.
As soon as we rolled into the bottom of Blueberry, we hit a little traffic jam. Not a big deal. So I popped out. I threw up some action cams in a couple different spots because I'm very excited to watch the suspension cycle and watch all these parts work. But after a couple minutes of waiting, I decided to go up and see what's going on.
You like that? Turn the stereo loud enough, none of this matters. Yeah.
What happened?
I think he broke the welds on the front drive shaft and it spun. Easy repair, but not right here.
Oh yeah.
So.
Dang. That's a weird one.
Yeah. Interesting. I had to take a double.
Who made the front shaft?
Not me, thankfully. Mine are usually
not Bobby.
Those backyard square shafts hold up pretty good.
So he's just rear wheel driving it now?
Yeah, we're trying to winch it up.
Well, that was a short-lived party.
This actually took way too long to get Mike recovered. But after a couple hours, we ended up pulling him down instead of up and then turned around. I told Mike that I'll follow him back to camp and he can just roll with me. So once we got back to Blueberry, finally we can hit the trail. But unfortunately, Mike's not the only one who's going to get stuck today. I get very wedged in a way that it sucks pretty bad. This is not a trip video like you would normally see from me. I love like high production value. I love big, beautiful drone shots and all this. This is not that kind of video. This is all about analyzing all the work that we did when we reinvented the wheel trying to build out this Samurai. I mean, we built everything from scratch. And I want to point out that as I'm analyzing all this, watching this suspension cycle and watching how flat and controlled this body is unlike anything I've ever built before. But I haven't built anything. I've built plenty of suspensions from scratch, but I haven't built like an entire chassis, an entire idea from scratch. I wanted high clearance, crazy heavy axles, and I wanted a high clearance, crazy light body. It's rare that I'll build something this tall, but I knew that I could get away with it because of the parts and pieces and ingredients that we're using. So this body's staying flat because we did a double triangulated four-link front and rear. I was very particular on where the joints landed to make sure that everything was going to work in harmony, because if you mess up the geometry of a double triangulated four-link, it could bind in the middle of the suspension cycle. It could bind towards like when it droops all the way out or whenever it flexes all the way in, but none of that's happening. I mean, everything is just so cohesive and flowing so well. It's extremely, extremely satisfying. And when you couple that with the fact that I'm using the longest coilovers I've used in any build, the rear coilovers are 18-inch long, 8 or 18-inch travel coilovers, and the fronts are 16s. And I measured for these limit straps and the bumps. We're getting like full compression and dang near full droop out of these coilovers. We're using every inch, and it's giving this buggy the ability to stay so nice and flat in combination with all these other ideas that we've thrown at it. So right now, we're about to get served a fat piece of humble pie. But right now, I'm super happy and super excited for just a first run with zero tuning. I almost did this optional line in one shot, and I just barely slid off my mark. And now if I go forward or backward at all, the slider just keeps sliding down lower and lower. If this slider goes underneath this like little undercut section that's next to me, not only will this rock be in the cab with me, but the recovery effort will be insane. So I decided I don't want to waste everybody's day just doing this. So I decided to just winch. I mean, hindsight's 2020. Looking at it from the outside now, I'm kind of wishing that I would have just gave it one more go. But again, if that slider goes underneath that rock, getting this thing out of here is going to suck so bad. So in order to keep everybody moving, we decided to pull cable, and a very unfortunate thing happens with this aftermarket winch solenoid that I installed.
Put in free spool. It's locked up. Put in free spool.
I installed a small aftermarket winch solenoid from Amazon, and it just went into a runaway winch scenario. I've never had this happen or even seen it happen in person. And unfortunately, it happened to me, and it almost was dragging the guy who's recovering me like down a dangerous hill sideways. So luckily, my first instinct was just throw it into free spool. The guys were able to get into free spool, and we saved ourselves from like a really dangerous situation. Maybe somebody would have had to like cut the synthetic line. I don't know. But now it's got me thinking the obvious solution here, which would be to add some sort of a cutoff switch.
Well, I think I'm gonna have to put the actual Warren branded solenoid in there. I bought an aftermarket one, and I mean, that's crazy. I mean, it was a gamble to have a giant shakedown run like this. I could have went local.
Yeah, my shakedown was hammers too. I was like,
was it really?
This is diving head first.
Yeah.
You couldn't go up turkey claw, could you?
We did last night.
We did last night.
Yeah.
Throw me right in the front.
We put Bobby in a position to where he would lift up the back of the Samurai, and this would give me the flexibility to wiggle this thing around to where I could get it off the rock without getting this slider like wedged underneath the rock. And unfortunately, this ate up a whole bunch of time, and everybody was hungry, so we went back to camp to lick our wounds. And to be honest with you, I'm exhausted. We have been working hard on this thing we worked on it every day for a month straight. It was a marathon getting down here, and I just need a little bit of time to chill.
Didn't you?
Look at this. 2 Unimog steer axles. We're gonna do rear steer on the old Zook. I don't know when, but at some point. But this was just such a sweet deal I couldn't pass up. Huge thanks to Bobby for bringing these from Arizona. I saw him on like a rock crawling classifieds group, and made an offer on the whole lot, and now we've got like all kinds of cool stuff. Remote pump. I mean, a lot of this is going to be changed around, but these portal boxes unbolt, not these portal boxes, the steering portion of this unbolts from here, and it'll bolt right into the rear axle that I have on the Samurai right now. So it makes it for a real easy conversion to do rear steer.
Getting these Unimog axles and the bed of my truck was quite the operation. I installed a Harbor Freight crane and a Harbor Freight winch on top of that crane, so that just for this, because I knew that when we get out to the desert, we're not gonna be able to just lift these up and put them in this super tall truck bed. It was sketchy, but we got the axles in there, and then it was time to just enjoy myself a little bit. I was only in Johnson Valley for 2 days. One of those days, I didn't want to film at all. I just wanted to be a person, just be a human on the lake bed with my friends, hit some trails, have some fun, and then I went down to even farther Southern California with my buddy Brad from Trail Recon, and we put together this awesome 4-day Rocklander trip that we've got a whole bunch of big news with this Rocklander route thing that we're working on. So that's to come. I hope that you enjoyed this first little shakedown run. We've got to get this thing home. We've got to start prepping it and building it so that it can do the Matt's Off-Road Recovery Games here in like a month and a half. So if you want to go to Sand Hollow in March and check this thing out in person, we're going to be in Sand Hollow with Matt's Off-Road Recovery and all the other YouTube channels that are there competing. So I hope to see you there.